Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Let's get after it.
Kandahar, Afghanistan, 2002. A military special forces team claims to have killed a Nephilim giant. The year is 2002, exact date unknown. An army squad goes missing while patrolling the rocky and mountainous terrains of Kandahar, Afghanistan. Assuming the worst, a potential ambush, a special forces team is sent out to investigate what happened to these soldiers. While investigating their last known location, they notice something very odd. A bunch of different pieces of military equipment broken and scattered throughout the dirt. Assuming it's a potential ambush, the Army Special Forces members are all completely on guard. Until they notice something even more strange. Numerous human and animal bones scattered all throughout the dirt, everywhere. Some of the bones were broken, and some of them had what appeared to be bite marks in them. Because of this, they assumed that it was some sort of wild animal that might have done this. But sadly, it was something far worse. The Special Forces team slowly creeps closer and closer towards the entrance of the cave. And as the Special Forces team members are just about to enter the cave, at astonishing speeds, a giant humanoid creature sprints out of the cave and skewers one of the team members with what appears to be a javelin, unaliving the soldier almost instantly. The Special Forces members were completely stunned due to how quickly everything transpired and how surreal this whole situation was. And then they all just started completely unloading on this giant, shooting it in the body and then eventually the head once they figured out that the body shots were not doing anything to this giant with Barrett 50 cals and different calibers of different rifles. Until they finally managed to take it down with 30 seconds of sustained gunfire. When they called back into base for evac, they told them what happened and they told them about the body of the giant. So a helicopter was sent out to transport the giant back to the US. The helicopter took the body to an airfield to load it on a cargo plane to take it back to the US. And that's where we get this depiction here from of a giant strapped down to a pallet ready to be transported back to the US. They claim that after the body of the giant was dead for a while, it started to rot and it absolutely stunk. They said that it had red hair and 6 fingers and 6 toes, and it weighed over 1,000 pounds. To some of you out there, I'm sure this sounds like some sort of fairy tale, something way too far-fetched to be real, just a story. But from what I've heard and what I've read, this might not be just a story. You can even find an interview on YouTube, if it's still up, of someone who claims that he was on that Special Forces team on that fateful day, and telling all of us what really happened that day, and that someone really did pass on into the next life on that mission. And if you were to go to Kandahar, Afghanistan to this day and talk to the locals about the red-haired giant, they'd tell you about the giant, and how he terrorized them, and how he would eat people, and how he would take them away to his cave. And if you're lucky, you might know someone who was in the military around this time that can tell you about the story themselves and what they heard. What do you all think? Let me know in the comments. Maybe giants really do still roam the earth.
Well, they mentioned what I was waiting to hear. 6 fingers on each hand, 6 toes on each foot, and red hair. Isn't it funny how that keeps coming up?
Right. I'll tell you what, I had a CIA agent on my podcast a couple of weeks ago, and it was interesting. I said to him, what keeps you up at night? What have you learned through your past 20 years that genuinely keeps you up at night where you're like, I wish I never knew that, and I'm paralyzed with fear because of this secret that the American public doesn't know? He was like, there's a couple
That's a great question.
He said, the thing that I can share with you, this isn't the number one thing, but this is up there. He goes, the thing that I can share with you is our power grid. We can be put back to the Stone Age, like pre-colonial times, within 5 minutes. If our enemy gets at our power grid, he said our power grids are the most vulnerable power grids of any first world nation. People will able to hack them in a second, and you would have upwards of 100 million people in this country alone within 6 months. He was like, because I'm talking about no power, no water supply, nothing. For 6 months, we would not be able to get it up for at least 6 months. He goes, now we're working retroactively to upgrade these things.
Is he saying this?
Well, he said, it's pretty public knowledge to the powers that be. But he said that is a thing that absolutely we are in jeopardy of. He was like, no one's going to us. No one's going to invade mainland USA. He goes, even like it might happen again, but it's not going to debilitate you. He's like, we stop this shit all the time. We're really, weapons and all that. We're so far ahead of every other country. It's not even close.
Someone's going to come flip a light switch and we're fucked.
He said, but that's how they'll get you. There's no reason to have these weapons like this anymore because they can hit our power grid and then we're all and that's what we're vulnerable at, where other countries aren't. He said other countries have taken money and instead of building and tanks, they're upgrading their tech systems that they're impenetrable. So he was like, so that's the thing that keeps me up at night.
This terrifies the hell out of me too. It's scary because you can try to be prepared for that, but there's no way for you to fully be prepared for it. unless you're just completely off the grid, living out in the middle of nowhere. Not even if you're on solar, because an EMP or something could take that out. It could be damaged in some way. So it still has a fail rate. You'd almost have to just be Grizzly Adams living off the land with no electricity or nothing, and drinking water from the creek. So it's pretty scary because it's definitely not how I live, and I've got 4 kids that depend on me.
Potentially starfish prime. You better listen to what I'm saying. People better listen to what I'm saying. They better. I'm telling you. If you're interested in this stuff, listen to what I'm telling you. For people who don't know, that was a nuclear test in space. It was the main test where we really were able to study and learn about EMP. This was also happening during, oddly enough, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And the whole world was focused on the Cuban Missile Crisis. Something else was going on. And that something else may have brought something down. And that something that brought down, we may have learned a lot about that, about EMP specifically, and its ability to catch things that are hiding. Everyone has to remember what happened once we started playing with nuclear weapons. UFOs showed up everywhere. And you got to think, why? And even they, as advanced as they are, they can't get away from it. And makes you really wonder why we did so many nuclear tests. It makes you really wonder why we did like 30,000 tests all over the world, in oceans, underground, up in the sky, and why we all have so many nuclear weapons. It's a big deal. The entire Cold War, we were working with the Soviet Union. We were together with them. And it was the one thing that kept the Cold War from going hot, was our relationship together on this issue. Because there was a small group of people on both sides that were trying to do exactly what they did, which was fly swat some bugs out of the sky.
That's pretty interesting. That was Tom DeLonge speaking from Blink-182 and the To the Stars Academy. It's interesting, we've heard a lot about these UFOs showing up whenever they're transporting nuclear weapons, and we've seen the video footage of the supposed UFO that is deactivating the missile in midair, and then it just falls out of the sky. It's interesting to think that that's the reason that they're not trying to protect us from ourselves, but they're trying to protect them from us. Yeah, it makes sense. If I was an alien and I was on another planet and I saw them fixing to blow it up, I'd be trying to intervene as well. My life would depend on it, just like theirs would if they were here. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, I make a new one just like it every single day. It would be awesome if you'd hit that subscribe button and come back tomorrow to join me.
Another conspiracy theory. You've seen all the grainy footage of nuclear test blasts. There's always been a conspiracy theory that those were all basically fabricated at this facility, that those bombs were never detonated.
How did they fake it?
Okay, so here's the question. So what happened to the camera?
You son of a bitch. You son of a bitch.
How is that happening yet the camera is like totally stable and fine?
Oh my.
And by the way, the film is fine. The radiation didn't cause any damage to the film. Where's the car? There's the car.
Oh,
okay,
it just showed up.
So wait a minute. First of all,
wasn't there.
first of all,
No
where it comes
car.
From.
No car.
Second is, does it really look like
Car.
Does that look like a real car?
That's insane. You know what it looks like? The smoke is too big. Like the size of it, it looks small. You know what I'm saying? And we're looking at something that's like a few inches tall. The clouds just don't look realistic.
Right.
Like it looks like they're too big and they move too quickly back and forth.
Basically, the U.S. military was basically faking these bomb tests to freak out the Russians, to make us think that we had potency to our nuclear weapon arsenal that we actually didn't have at the time. Does that look like those are full-size giant lumber beams as they go flying?
All right, I do believe that we've tested nuclear weapons. I don't think that footage is actual footage of nuclear testing, because the guy raises a good question. What happened to the camera? Why is there cars popping in and out of frame from one frame to the next? That's just another clear-cut example of us being lied to for freaking decades by the U.S. government. I do believe that they're testing nuclear weapons, but that footage has clearly been faked.
I found some Tartarian secrets, y'all. So it took a lot of digging, but they couldn't erase it all. Look at this newspaper from 1792. They talk about the Tartarians getting British goods from Russia. This world map from 1732 depicting Great Tartary right there. And then, oh look, is that the Great Wall of China? Look at that. right there under Tartary. Check to see where that borders on a map today. And then look at this illustration from 1653 showing a map of Tartaria. We have this newspaper from 1871. This one is a circus showing a wild Tartarian monster yak. What?
In the declassified CIA document from 1957, Tartar history was to be rewritten. Let us be frank, it was to be falsified. The king of Tartary has fallen upon the city of Pequin with such a great army as has never been seen since Adam's time, where 7 and 20 kings under whom marched 1,800,000 men, whereof 600,000 were on horse, and 4,000 rhinoceros that drew the wagons. Just as we can see on the map right here, a wall of 400 leagues built between the bottoms of the mountains by the king of China against the incursions of the Tartars.
In the 1920s, most Tartar leaders and intellectuals who wanted independence were eliminated through execution or exile. This policy against the Tartars continued to some extent until the early 1950s.
I've seen enough about Tartaria at this point that I can safely say I do believe that there was a Tartaria. I don't think that it was just a blanket term used to describe this large swath of lands. That's a reason that's been given to me over and over again in regards to Tartaria, and I don't buy it. I think that there's just too much written about it. There's too many specifics that we've seen come up. They had a flag. Russia's flag appears to show them trouncing the flag of Tartaria. There's just too much for there to not be something to it.
This creepy video comes from Morgan Lambert. I'll tag her below. And while checking her fence line for damages after a storm passed through her property, she caught voices on her audio that at the time she didn't hear. But the most concerning part was the voice sounded eerily similar to her own. Now this video obviously went viral, with many commenters speculating as to what it could be. Now I went through the video piece by piece and highlighted what I think it's saying. But definitely go watch the full video over on our page, and let me know what you think.
Oh god. I'm freezing. Pretty. Oh god. I'm a spell. I said, oh god. What? Sure. I just said, oh god, because no, I really did. What are you talking about? What? What are you talking about? I didn't hear anything. I think it's. Hey, don't run. It's okay. We're good. We're good. I don't hear. Okay. Okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Yeah, no, I don't really hear anything.
That's pretty crazy. You can clearly hear someone saying babe and baby from very far away. This would be pretty easy to fake because you could just have a recording playing on a cassette deck, stick it over by the tree line and push play and walk away from it. And then just film yourself hearing this noise that sounds like your voice from a distance. I don't think they're doing that. I think if they were going to do that, then they'd be a little bit more specific in what's being said. I think they would have tried to give it a little bit more of a creep factor and have it say something that was off-putting or something like that, like, hey, come here, or something like that. But for her to claim that she didn't even hear it until the video and all she can make out is babe gives it a little bit more credibility, because you could clearly hear that something else is being said by that voice, but you just can't make it out. And they would know what was being said if they had recorded it. So I'll call that one likely real, and definitely real creepy.
In 2021, YouTuber Matt Field spent the night in a dark cave in the middle of nowhere in Australia after his friend told him about an unsettling experience he had in that cave and dared him to spend the night there alone. Matt's channel is a bit more extreme than other outdoor exploration channels, and his videos often feature him leaving civilization behind and going to remote locations for days, living only off the fish he catches and the animals he hunts. In the video, he mentions that he didn't bring any water to the trip, hoping to find water to drink in the cave. After about 4 hours of walking, he finally finds the cave and climbs down the man-made ladder inside. Venturing deeper inside the cave, Matt crawls into the different holes he finds to see if any of them lead anywhere. Around this time, he started hearing a couple of rocks falling near the entrance, and the sound of some sort of animal walking around. At one point in the video, he mentions he feels like he's being watched, and things get a little more disturbing at around 11 p.m. when he begins to eat his baked beans for dinner.
That is beautiful. Baked beans in a haunted cave. Oh my God. That was the sound. That is the sound. Did you hear that? Look at my arms. I got full goosebumps. It's the chains moving when I climb down the ladder. It's a big, heavy, thick chain. Wind can't move that. Holy.
When Matt recorded this video, it wasn't a windy night at all, and the fact that the chain is moving can only mean that there's someone or something down there with him.
That chain moved just then. It is 100% now. I heard it before. I'm 100% certain it's the chain that I walked in, that you climbed down into this cave on. It's moving. Now, you can't move that chain with wind. It's way too heavy. There is no wind coming in here. There's no wind even for... Holy... Oh God. Look. You must have heard that just then. Look at my arms, dude. Oh, this is fucked. Okay. Well, I've got my backpack back on, and I'm booting on out of here. I just heard a sound. It's not normal. It's definitely not a normal sound, and I'm scared. I'm not gonna lie. It's probably about 2 hours, 2.5 hours after I checked in with you guys, so it would be around 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and that sound was not normal. I'm getting out of here.
After the creepy noises subside, he changes his mind about leaving the cave and decides to spend the rest of the night near the entrance. A couple of hours later, he reported hearing hissing sounds that sounded like human voices, but after walking around the cave, he couldn't find anything that could be making those noises. Aside from big animals, the worst thing that could have happened to Matt is to have come across a hostile squatter living in the cave, although it's unclear why anyone would want to live down there. Fortunately, he made his way out of the cave safely as soon as the sun rose, and never went back to that cave again.
And that's why you should never explore caves alone. That and the whole getting trapped there and dying and no one knowing what happened to your body thing. To me, if this did come from that night inside the Miami Mall, this lends credibility to the police story, because that sounds to me like fireworks going off. It doesn't sound like a pow, like a gunshot. I can hear that some people in that area hearing such a loud noise and not knowing what it was would suspect that it was a gunshot and would start running, thinking it was an active shooter, especially with it being 2024 in America. But who knows if this is even from inside the mall that night.
Okay, this is a bit creepy. Let me know what you guys think. So, why does NASA have all these old school cars? My thoughts are, they're cars without computers in them. All from the 1970s. They're preparing for an EMP blast. What's odd is they're not just old school NASA cars. Here's a news car. They have a whole fleet from NASA vehicles, semi-trucks, ambulances. Perhaps this is where that $50 million a day budget is going, because we all know it's certainly not getting us into space. Collectors of CGI videos and apparently old school cars. Let me know what you think they're using them for. Question everything, friends. Until next time.
Well, it looks like NASA is definitely preparing for an EMP, or they're not hoarding Teslas, people. Looks like they expect something bad to pop off. So all this stuff should be giving you a heads up. All this stuff should be tipping you off that something's coming.
I can't believe that hardly anybody is talking about this video.
This is the video called the Kumburgaz video, which is a close-up of a craft, so close that you can see the occupants. It is 100% real, and I was there as that was filmed.
The whole footage has been analyzed for a more scientific board for 2.5 weeks, frame by frame, pixel by pixel, and this is 100% genuine footage.
This was filmed in Istanbul, and this might be some of the most insane footage of a UFO that the public has ever seen. And there were actually several recordings of this object or similar objects from 2007 to 2009. So I took a screenshot of this part of the video, and you can see two figures inside this object, and to me, it looks like two heads with two sets of eyes. Now, what makes this even more fascinating is that this footage was analyzed by Turkey's top governmental scientific institution, and this is what they claimed. The footage images of the object, which visibly have a certain configuration, are not computer animations, special video effects, or studio recreated images or models. The footage is genuine. And there are other results on here from that analysis, but the original document that had the results are of course in Turkish. And here's one of those original documents in Turkish. Oh, and also this was discussed on Turkish news before and after the analysis.
That's pretty cool to have all that documentation and all those eyes on it. You know, people of stature, professionals saying that they've done research on it and they believe it to be real and genuine. That's fascinating. The only thing that makes me feel like this could just be somebody pulling the wool over our eyes is those look suspiciously like the movie depiction of aliens whenever they do that freeze frame. Could be that that's the reason that the aliens in the movies look that way, is because people have seen them in real life and reported them to have that appearance.
I think I might have just scientifically proven the firmament and potentially the flat Earth. As you may know, there's a lot of oxygen up there. In fact, the ozone layer is made up of O3 molecules. That's oxygen triple bonded to itself. Did you know that oxygen freezes at about negative 350 degrees Fahrenheit? Did you know that when it freezes, it turns a sky blue color? And did you know that outer space is negative 450 degrees Fahrenheit? If everything I just said was true, then the very upper levels of our atmosphere that come in contact with space would be frozen oxygen. And right below that layer of frozen oxygen would be the waters above, liquid oxygen. And why would it stay up there? Because whenever it got warm, it would just become a gas and float back up. There's your firmament, folks, and the waters above. Science approved.
If all of what this guy is saying, that oxygen freezes at negative 350 degrees Fahrenheit and that the vacuum of space is negative 450 degrees Fahrenheit, if I'm remembering correctly what he said. If what he's saying is accurate, then that does make sense. It would explain where that big dome came from. I don't know. This one's got my mind working. Still don't believe in the flat earth. It's interesting whenever you hear more potential evidence to back up a theory that sounds so crazy as the flat earth theory. It's definitely one that has a lot of people sitting on the fence, myself included, but I still believe in a globe. That's still not enough to convince me yet.
Does that work? Years later, to come to find out, when I had returned from Afghanistan and had met other military members that had not been there in the operations with me, if you would bring up the giant of Kandahar, they knew about it. When you first hear it, you're thinking like, this has got to be a joke. This has got to be a hoax. But then after things go down a certain way and you keep hearing it, you start to realize it's not a joke. They kept telling us to keep our weapons high, which means normally it's two to the chest, one to the head, but they kept telling us to put it towards a man's head and put it higher. So we would question, why do they want us to shoot higher than a man's head?
That's bizarre.
It is.
Our contact said 2002 is when they shot this 15-footer or taller. And you're now in this, in the service around 2005. This word has gotten out. And what I find interesting here too is that if you're going to create a hoax, I get that. But you got details: 6 fingers, red hair, double rows of teeth, 6 digits on the toes. And of course, that brings it right back into what we hear about in the biblical prophetic narrative, specifically the Nephilim. Your thoughts?
I agree. I would tell you that when I was doing my time in the service, and the stuff I saw, some of it I couldn't explain, like lights in the sky during firefights, like orbs or lights that do the size of a softball that look that size looking up in the sky but making weird noises. And even going to Iraq myself and being near Haditha Dam and seeing the prisoners underneath the dam, and the prisoners would scream and there'd be this awful feeling underneath the dam, and then later finding out in the Bible that an angel's locked underneath there, where it talks about.
And this Haditha Dam is the Euphrates.
Is Euphrates,
and there's
correct.
an angel supposedly locked underneath the Euphrates,
Correct.
which is released in the Book of Revelation.
Correct.
Did anyone else feel like that guy was making all that stuff up? You ever just watch something that has alarm bells going off in your head and you're seeing nothing but red flags? That's what this video did to me. I don't believe that guy for a second. I can't tell you why. He just sounds like he's making it up. He just sounds like he's full of crap and that he is remembering something that he heard and trying to use that to validate his own story. And I don't know, something about it was fishy. Especially with it being touted as this is supposed to be this big revealing interview. The guy literally says almost nothing of any value.
All right, fam, you're going to want to hear this one. A couple days ago, a soldier with the highest security clearance sent me a message on my TikTok. In his message, he would state that he might know why Biden left Afghanistan the way he did. Intrigued, I said, please explain. He disclosed that he had top secret security clearance and that it was his second tour in Afghanistan. He was a radio technician, and he would fix the broken comms soldiers would bring back to the FOB, or the Forward Operating Base. While in the Middle East, he would work with the best spec ops teams in the military. From MARSOC, which is U.S. Marine Corps Special Forces, to the SEALs, the Rangers, and the British Marines. And about 7 months ago is when he got back from his last tour. It was around the time that Biden first took office, and the same time when something would take place that made U.S. forces decide it wasn't worth being there. And here is why. Viewer discretion advised. He was nearing the end of his tour when one of his SEAL buddies brought back a bunch of broken radios. After a mission where his team would take on 60% casualties, which was highly unusual in Afghanistan at this time. And they had been sent out on a patrol in the surrounding hills and mountains. They were in the Kandahar region of Afghanistan. Officially, his buddy would tell him they got attacked by a platoon-sized element of the Taliban. But for some reason, he could sense that he wasn't hearing the entirety of the story. Well, lucky for our technician, he had recently snuck booze into the wire, and he would end up getting drunk with the SEAL team member for 6 nights straight. When on the very last night of drinking together, the SEAL team member, out of the blue, would say you can't tell anybody about this. And the shit he's about to say should never be repeated. Our whistleblower would explain that the SEAL team member wouldn't go into gritty detail. He assumed it was either because he hadn't processed it yet, or someone forcibly told him not to tell a soul. During the mission, we would come up on a cave that was supposed to be a hostile outpost. But as they approached the outpost in the cave, they suddenly heard screaming inside. They then proceeded to a vantage point where they could get a better view, out of sight of any enemy combatants. When they finally got in position and glanced down into the cave, they couldn't believe their eyes. It was a giant standing anywhere from 16 to 20 feet tall, fighting the Taliban. He was crushing them, limb from limb, tossing them around like rag dolls, killing one after another after another. The men were in shock. They couldn't believe what they were witnessing. They would watch for about 30 seconds and then decide it would be smart to take a tactical withdrawal. But as they were backing up, the giant would spot one of them. And with swift speed, he would pursue and be on top of them in seconds. He would engage and kill 3 of them immediately. So quickly, one of them called air support from an A-10. By the time the bombs buried the beast, he killed 8 SEALs and corpsmen. Wounding 2, but they survived. They were told to keep quiet because of backlash. Shortly after this incident, we would decide to make a hasty withdrawal. This would be the second time U.S. soldiers would battle a giant from Kandahar.
I don't think that that's why Biden left Afghanistan in a hurry. Not to dive into politics here, but if he left Afghanistan early, it's probably because he forgot why he was there in the first place.
To your proof questions, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time left. Sorry, let me give you the 5 bullet points that I gave a Georgetown physicist, and he folded like a card table almost immediately. I put this challenge up to Brian Cox, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Michio Kaku, any of these guys. First one would be long-distance photography. Curvature of the Earth is 8 inches per mile squared. We eventually should not be able to see over the hill. We should be a hill. It should be gone. HD technology has changed that. Now we can see things way, way further. It's some wonderful work being done by Nathan Oakley and some UK teams where they're actually seeing a horizon behind oil platforms at 10, 15, 20 miles. Gravity versus the vacuum of space. Gravity's holding things down, right? That's gravity, no problem, right? You make the upper part of this a vacuum chamber, you pull a cork, everything's gonna rush upstairs. Well, why, when you go outside, why isn't the air outside rushing into space? You can't, the atmosphere. Why doesn't it go into space? Can't say gravity anymore because gravity didn't hold the air in this room for that little test. Third, the moon eclipse is too small. The moon eclipse is 70 miles wide and the moon is 2,000 miles wide. We never see that in nature. The moon eclipse we say the moon is about 70 miles wide. Fourth would be the moon temperature. That's a spooky one. I didn't even know that till about two years in, which is the moon generates a cold light, which is warmer in the moon shade than it is in the moonlight. If you magnify moonlight, it gets even colder. It's generating a cold laser light. It doesn't even make sense. And the last question, which is the Van Allen radiation trap question, which is, are the Van Allen radiation belts deadly? Yes or no? If they are deadly, then how the Americans get past it with no shielding whatsoever? Remember, the only thing that can stop radiation is gold, lead, and a whole bunch of water. They went with aluminum and plastic. Nobody died. Nobody got radiation poisoning. Nobody got cancer. There's still 5 walking around today. If you say yes, then why does NASA have this wonderful video, Ryan trial by fire, saying, oh yeah, we can't send any capsules into space because we haven't solved the radiation problem yet?
Just an observation here. I don't know who this guy is. I'm sure that those that are in the flat earth community could probably enlighten me as to who that is, but just an observation. If this guy wants to be taken serious, he needs to slow down with his speaking. He's doing that. I might get interrupted, so I have to speak very, very quickly and not give anyone an opportunity to speak over me or to interrupt me. Kind of quick talk. It just makes him sound like somebody's listening. This fact and this fact and this fact and this fact and this fact. That's what he comes across as, and I feel like it ruins his argument. It makes him hard to listen to. The guy could be 100% accurate. I don't know. How would I know? All I could do is choose to believe him or believe what science tells me. Right now, I'm still spinning on this thing. I'm not up here yet. That may change, but it ain't today. That is the end of the video. I will see you guys in the next one tomorrow. I hope you have a great, safe day. And come back to visit with me. I will see you again tomorrow.